The first thing I heard when I came back to life was the soft, stubborn ticking of my stopwatch. Not the hospital monitor that had flattened into one long tone before I died. Not the slap of rain against the ambulance doors. Not the paramedic saying, "Nobody knows how long she was down," as if time had been a fog instead of something people had failed to record. Just the tiny click, click, click in my palm, steady as a heartbeat that had not yet been stolen from me. The stopwatch was black, scratched near the start button, and looped around my wrist with a blue cord. Across the back, under a strip of external assessor tape, was the label, Candidate 41, Timing Device Verified, Do Not Stop During Active Station. I was standing at the edge of the indoor athletics court at Marlow College, wearing the red vest for the Harrow Sports Medicine Scholarship Practical, with a clipboard tucked under my arm and a mock athlete sitting on a bench 10 meters away. The station card in front of me read, Exercise Collapse Scenario, Record Onset, Recovery, Pulse, Cooling, Escalation. In my first life, Mr. Victor Hale, head of sports science, practical convener, and father of the boy whose instincts looked excellent only when nobody checked the clock, leaned beside me and said, "Stop timing, Mara." A good responder watches the athlete, not the stopwatch. I stopped it. I lost the exact onset time, missed the escalation threshold by 40 seconds on the record, and my correct call for emergency cooling was marked, unsupported by timing evidence. His son, Adrian Hale, used the official timing feed and won the scholarship by 1 mark. Years later, after I became the kind of sports safety officer who logged collapse times before anyone could turn delay into opinion, I died during a real fun run emergency where the first collapse time was never recorded and treatment drifted until it was too late. My last thought, while a whistle lay on wet grass beside someone shouting for an ambulance, was not noble. It was exact. Keep timing. Then the athletics court returned. My stopwatch was still running, and Mr. Hale was already walking toward me with a silver whistle hanging from 2 fingers. A stopwatch looks simple until somebody wants time to become flexible. It has no elegance. It does not flatter anyone. It does not care whether a coach is respected, whether a responder sounds confident, whether a favorite student looks calm, or whether a delay was inconvenient to explain. It only counts. That was why the Harrow Scholarship Practical required each candidate to wear an approved stopwatch during active stations. The final assessed sports medicine reasoning, not athletic performance, exertional collapse, concussion recognition, asthma escalation, heat illness response, pulse recovery, return to play refusal, and emergency communication. Every candidate had to keep time from the moment the station began until the external assessor called clear. Stopwatches were synchronized before entry. Timing logs mattered because symptoms change meaning depending on minutes. A pulse that stays high after 2 minutes means something different from one that settles in 30 seconds. Confusion after a head knock means something different if it resolves immediately or persists. Heat collapse becomes life-threatening when cooling is delayed. In sports safety, time is not background. Time is the injury's second body. My name was Mara Sen, and I had grown up in a family that respected minutes because we never had many spare ones. My mother worked at a physiotherapy clinic, cleaning rooms, booking appointments, and reminding patients that 10 minutes of ice did not mean whenever you remember to take it off. My father drove early morning airport shuttles before his back injury moved him into dispatch, where every pickup lived or died by the clock. My younger brother Nico had exercise-induced asthma and a talent for turning every school cross-country into a family negotiation with teachers who thought puffers were signs of nervous parenting. My mother used to write Nico's warm-up timing, puffer timing, and recovery timing on a card in black marker. "Bodies are not vague," she said. "People are vague about them." That sentence stayed with me. I did not trust adults who called timing unnecessary. They were usually the ones who had not been held responsible when a body disagreed. The Harrow Sports Medicine Scholarship was the only prize at Marlow College that felt like it belonged to students who noticed what happened after the cheering stopped. Full final year tuition, a placement with the state sports safety unit, a university mentor in exercise physiology, and a recommendation letter strong enough to turn a bursary student into someone the school could call future health leader without sounding charitable. The final practical that year was staged in the athletic center. Candidates rotated through 6 stations. At each station, actors played injured athletes, coaches interrupted with pressure, teammates gave noisy information, and assessors watched whether you followed evidence instead of ego. Station 5 was the one everyone feared: exertional heat illness after a repeated sprint test. The athlete would be flushed, confused, nauseated, and initially able to speak. The trap was that the simulated coach would insist it was just fitness and demand shade and rest instead of active cooling. The correct response was to start timing from collapse, remove from exertion, check mental status, begin rapid cooling, call emergency support, and not wait for the athlete to walk it off. The difference between a good answer and a dangerous answer was not tone. It was minutes. Mr. Victor Hale ruled Marlowe's sport like a man who believed whistles were a natural extension of authority. He wore tracksuits with the school crest, had a square jaw, sun-darkened skin, and a voice that could cut across an oval without effort. Around his neck always hung a silver whistle that students joked had more power than the principal's signature. Parents loved him because his teams won championships. Teachers deferred to him because sport brought donations, trophies, open-day photographs, and the kind of school pride that made budget conversations easier. Students feared him because he could make safety sound like weakness if safety threatened performance. His son, Adrian, was Marlowe's Golden Athlete Scholar. Fast, composed, prefect badge on blazer, team captain, good enough at theory to sound convincing and good enough at sport to make adults forgive gaps. Adrian was not stupid. That mattered. He knew basic first aid, understood training load, and could speak confidently under pressure. But he had inherited his father's worst habit. He trusted appearance over timing. If an athlete sat upright, he called them stable. If they answered one question, he called them oriented. If 30 seconds felt like 2 minutes, he believed the feeling. In my first life, the stopwatch check happened at 9:03. The external assessor, Dr. Imani Clark, synchronized my stopwatch with the master clock, press start, reset, start again, and watched the display respond. Candidate 41, she said, this stays running during active station timing. You may mark laps, but do not stop it until the assessor clears you. If any internal staff tells you to stop timing, call me. I nodded. I heard her. The instruction felt almost too obvious. Why would anyone tell me to stop the one object designed for the station? That was before I learned that traps usually begin by making the obvious look unsophisticated. At 9:18, I entered Station 5. The mock athlete, a Year 11 drama student named Callum, sat hunched on a bench, red-faced and breathing fast after the stage sprint set. The station prompt said he had collapsed briefly near the cone line 90 seconds ago. I started the stopwatch immediately. Click. Running. I checked airway, breathing, responsiveness, skin, pulse, and orientation. He joked weakly that he was just cooked. His pulse was high. His answers were slow. He could not remember the last sprint count. I marked the time. Heat illness. Potential exertional heat stroke until proven otherwise. I reached for the cooling towel. That was when Mr. Hale stepped into the station as the interfering coach. In the scenario, coaches were allowed to pressure candidates. That part was fair. He's fine, he said loudly. He always gets dramatic after sprints. Give him a minute. I ignored the tone and checked Callum's mental status again. Callum, what day is it? He blinked. Training day. Wrong. I noted the time. Mr. Hale came closer, lowering his voice, so only I could hear. Mara, stop timing. I looked at him. The station requires timing. You are staring at the stopwatch instead of the athlete. I am tracking onset. A good responder watches the athlete, not the stopwatch. He smiled in that coach way, half encouragement, half warning. Stop timing, Mara. You'll look robotic. I hesitated. He saw it and pressed. Your bursary review includes conduct under pressure. Your mother's clinic placement request is connected to our sport health partnership. Nico's asthma action plan for athletics carnivals still needs my sign-off. A candidate in your position cannot afford to look like she cares more about a device than a person. In your position. The phrase had worn many uniforms in my life. This time, it wore a whistle. I looked at Callum, flushed and breathing. I looked at the stopwatch. I wanted to look caring. I wanted the assessor to see that I saw the person, not just the number. So, I pressed stop. The display froze at 142. That was the number that ruined me. I still did the right things clinically. I moved Callum to active cooling. I called for emergency support. I refused to let the coach send him back. I monitored pulse and mental state. But because I had stopped timing, my record showed no continuous onset to cooling interval. During review, Mr. Hale said, "Candidate stopped device voluntarily during patient contact."
Dr. Clark asked why.
I said he told me to. He looked disappointed. I told her not to stare at it. I did not instruct her to stop required timing. My escalation was judged clinically appropriate, but timing evidence incomplete. Adrian's station came after mine. He kept his stopwatch running because no one told him otherwise, delayed active cooling by nearly a minute, but his timing record looked complete and his explanation sounded confident. He won by 1 mark. The first life after that taught me how easily delay becomes invisible when no one owns the minutes. My appeal failed because the stopwatch showed a stopped interval. My bursary reduced. My mother's clinic partnership went nowhere. Nico's asthma action plan sat unsigned until a sports carnival where a casual teacher made him run without checking his puffer timing, and my mother became the kind of parent schools call intense after making intensity necessary. I left Marlow before final year and finished elsewhere. Later, I became a sports safety coordinator, then an exertional heat illness policy officer. My work was full of clocks, collapse times, cooling start times, return to play intervals, concussion observation windows, puffer doses, ambulance arrival times, hydration breaks, rest ratios, lightning delays, heat index triggers. Coaches hated me until someone's child lived because a timer told the truth faster than pride did. I died during a community fun run heat event after a storm failed to break the humidity and the organizers refused to shorten the course. A runner collapsed near the 3rd water station. Nobody wrote the time because everyone was helping. Helping is good. Unrecorded helping can become chaos. By the time I reached her, 3 different volunteers gave 3 different estimates. 2 minutes, 5 minutes, maybe 10. The cooling tubs had been placed too far from the finish line. The ambulance route was blocked by event fencing. I started timing, shouted for ice water, and tried to reconstruct the lost interval while rain began to fall warm and heavy. A whistle lay in the grass beside a marshal who kept saying he thought someone else had called it in. I slipped in mud while dragging the cooling tarp closer. My chest hit the ground. The stopwatch in my hand cracked against a stone, but kept ticking. I remember that most clearly. Time kept going even when people failed it. Keep timing, I thought. Then Station 5 returned. This time, before Mr. Hale reached me, I made the stopwatch part of the record. At 9:14, I raised my hand. Dr. Clark walked over. "Candidate 41? Can you confirm my stopwatch must keep running through Station 5? She looked at the device, then at me.
Yes.
"You may use lap marks, but do not stop it during active care. Can you note that?" Her eyes sharpened slightly. She tapped her tablet. 9:14, Candidate 41 timing device active. Instructed to maintain continuous timing during active station. No internal stop instruction permitted. Then she placed a tiny blue witness stood on the stopwatch cord. "If anyone tells you to stop timing, call me." "I will." Station 5 began. Callum sat on the bench, flushed and breathing fast. I started the stopwatch at the prompt.
Click.
Running. I did not look away from him for long. That was the lie Mr. Hale had used. That timing meant not seeing. In truth, timing meant seeing with memory attached. "Callum, can you tell me where you are?" "Sports hall."
Correct.
"What day is it?" "Training day."
Wrong.
"Time?" 0:39 from station start, roughly 2:09 from collapse per prompt. "Pulse high."
Skin hot.
Confusion persistent. I called for active cooling. Mr. Hale stepped in.
"He's fine," he barked.
He always gets dramatic after sprints. "He is confused after collapse," I said. "I'm treating this as exertional heat illness. Give him a minute." Minutes are exactly what I'm tracking. His jaw tightened. He moved closer and lowered his voice. Stop timing, Mara. No, the word came out before he finished breathing. His eyes narrowed. A good responder watches the athlete, not the stopwatch. A good responder records both. You'll look robotic. I'll look accurate.
His whistle swung against his chest.
Your bursary is not on this stopwatch. Your mother's placement is not on this stopwatch. Nico's asthma plan is exactly why I am keeping it running. His face hardened. Do not make this difficult. Do not make time disappear. I raised my voice. Dr. Clark? She entered the station immediately. Issue. I kept one hand on Callum's shoulder, the other holding the stopwatch where the display was visible. Mr. Hale is instructing me to stop continuous timing during active care. Mr. Hale gave a sharp, disbelieving laugh. I advised patient focus. She is fixated on the device. Dr. Clark looked at me. Candidate, what is your current assessment? Collapsed after exertion, persistent confusion, high pulse, hot skin, possible exertional heat illness. Active cooling indicated. Continuous timing needed for onset to cooling and escalation record. Dr. Clark nodded once. Continue. Stopwatch remains running. Then, to Mr. Hale. Interference noted. I treated the station cleanly. Cooling towel. Remove from exertion. Call emergency support. Monitor airway, breathing, pulse, mental status. Document collapse prompt time. Cooling start time. First orientation failure. Second orientation check. Pulse recovery. At 3 o'clock active station time, Callum remained confused, so I escalated again. At 4:15, he improved slightly, but still could not state the day correctly. I did not let the coach pressure a return. I said clearly, no return to play. Emergency review. Continue cooling until handed over. The stopwatch kept counting. Not instead of care. As part of it, Adrian Station 5 came later. He looked calm as always. He spoke beautifully. He reassured Callum. He moved him to shade. But he delayed active cooling because he waited for a second orientation question and a pulse repeat before acting. His stopwatch ran, which meant his delay was visible. It was not huge. That was the point. Dangerous delays often do not feel huge. They feel like confidence. The record showed active cooling started later than mine despite similar signs. His explanation used the phrase, watchful waiting. Dr. Clark wrote something down. Mr. Hale stood near the wall with his whistle in his hand, not around his neck. The collapse came during the scoring debrief. Because Dr. Clark had logged his interference, she requested Mr. Hale's station notes. He resisted with coachly irritation. Those are internal scenario prompts. Dr. Clark said, then they will match the official prompts. He opened his folder. On top sat laminated coach lines. Beneath them, loose papers. When he reached to remove only the official sheet, his whistle cord caught on the folder clip. He tugged. The whistle slipped from his fingers, struck the table, bounced once, and dropped to the floor with a sharp metallic clatter that cut through the room. Everyone looked down. A folded timing sheet had fallen with it. Dr. Clark picked up the sheet before he could. Her face changed as she read. Candidate 41 strongest heat escalation. If timing continuous, Adrian comparison weak. Encourage patient focus critique. Stop device if possible. If stopwatch stopped, mark escalation unsupported by interval. The room went silent. Mr. Hale's whistle lay at his feet, silver and useless. Without his hand or breath, it had no authority at all. The formal review happened in the physiology classroom. My mother arrived after my message, kept stopwatch running.
Hale tried.
Whistle dropped with note. Review now. She came straight from the clinic, still wearing her appointment desk lanyard, face pale with anger. My father arrived with Nico, whose asthma action plan folder was under one arm because my family had learned to bring proof to every room. Across the table sat Mr. Hale and Adrian. Dr. Clark projected the timing logs. Candidate 41 continuous timing, active cooling start, mental status checks, escalation time. Candidate Adrian cooling delay, interference log, recovered timing sheet. Then came a draft assessment note from Mr. Hale's account, created before Station 5. Candidate 41 over-reliance on timing device. Patient connection concern. Timing interruption may limit interval validity. Before I had even entered the station, Professor Sato, the external sports medicine judge, asked Mr. Hale, "Why did you prepare a note about Candidate 41's timing interruption before any interruption occurred?" Mr. Hale said, "Templates are prepared for possible assessment behaviors." Why Candidate 41 specifically? She had a known methodical style. Why did your private sheet state that if her timing was continuous, your son's comparison was weak? Silence. The whistle sat in a clear evidence pouch between the papers like an object finally stripped of myth. My mother leaned forward, because she was better at the part that kept the athlete safe. No one corrected her. Adrian spoke then. "I knew Dad wanted her to look mechanical," he said. Mr. Hale turned. "Adrian." No, his voice was low, but it held. "He told me not to worry if Mara escalated early, because the panel might mark her as over protocol if she seemed too focused on timing. I didn't know he would tell her to stop the watch." He looked at me, but I knew my chance depended on her timing being questioned. "Honest, ugly, useful. Why didn't you say anything?" I asked. He swallowed. "Because I wanted the scholarship and because I thought I looked more natural." "Natural is not a treatment plan," Professor Sato said. Adrian nodded once, ashamed. The decision came before sunset. My Station 5 score stood first. My overall ranking placed first. Adrian placed third after his delayed cooling and contaminated preparation were reviewed. Mr. Hale was removed from scholarship assessment and referred for misconduct review. The official findings stated that he attempted to induce a candidate to stop a verified timing device during active care, referenced family vulnerabilities in a coercive context, prepared candidate-specific notes anticipating timing invalidation, and created strategic guidance to benefit his son's comparative score. The report did not say he tried to erase my minutes because his son lost by them. Reports rarely use the sharpest sentence. But everyone had heard the whistle hit the floor. The scholarship announcement happened on the athletics court beside Station 5. Dr. Clark insisted the mock cooling station remain set up. The stopwatch sat on the table beside the certificate, still running until she pressed stop in front of the panel. The Harrow Scholarship recognizes sports medicine judgment that protects athletes under pressure, Professor Sato said. This year's winning candidate identified exertional heat risk, began active cooling promptly, maintained continuous timing, and refused improper interference. My mother began crying before my name. Nico whispered, "Stopwatch girl," and my father whispered, "Better than whistle boy." My mother elbowed him, but not hard. The 2026 Harrow Sports Medicine Scholar is Candidate 41, Mara-san. I walked forward and picked up the stopwatch before the certificate. Its display was frozen now at the final log time, but the ticking lived in my hand anyway. Dr. Clark handed me the scholarship letter, the placement, and a printed timing log. "Keep this," she said softly. "Care without time becomes opinion." I nearly cried then, because the first life had taught me exactly that. I had cared. I had acted. But without time, people with power turned care into something arguable. Mr. Hale resigned before the board completed the full review. Officially, he stepped aside to restore confidence in sports medicine assessment. Unofficially, his whistle dropped beside a note that said my continuous timing made his son weaker. Marlowe changed the rules. Stopwatches remained under external timing protocol. Internal staff with relatives in finals were barred from active scenario interference. Candidate timing could not be criticized as poor patient connection without external review, and all heat illness stations required visible onset to cooling logs. Boring reforms. Beautiful reforms. Every future stopwatch became harder to stop. Adrian found me outside the equipment room a month later. He wore no whistle, which improved him immediately. "I'm sorry," he said.
"No hello."
They never start with hello after their fathers are exposed. "For knowing?" I asked. He nodded. "For liking that you looked less natural when you timed everything." "Honest. Ugly. Useful. I thought I seemed more human." "You waited longer to cool the patient." "I know." He looked at the floor. "Dr. Clark made me redo Station 5. The actor deteriorated twice." Good. He flinched, then nodded.
Yeah, good.
He held up a cheap stopwatch, still in its packet. I bought one. Use it. I will. We did not become friends. But later that year, during a real sports carnival, I saw Adrian stop a race after a runner staggered near the finish. He started his stopwatch before he reached her. His hand shook. He kept timing. Growth is sometimes a boy learning that urgency is not the enemy of care. The scholarship changed my family first in practical ways. Tuition cleared. My mother's clinic partnership did not go through Mr. Hale's sport program, which pleased her because she said nobody who weaponized timing belonged near appointment books. Nico's asthma action plan was approved through an external health coordinator after Professor Sato wrote a letter that used the phrase timed medication access with such severity that the school responded within 48 hours. My father bought us all small stopwatches as a joke and labeled mine "Do Not Stop for Men with Whistles," which my mother called too specific and I called evidence-based. Nico wore his around the house for 2 weeks and timed toast.
Badly.
Years later, I became an exertional heat safety investigator. My work was full of stopwatches: collapse to cooling, symptom onset, ambulance response, return to play windows, concussion checks, inhaler intervals, heat index breaks, water rotations, lightning delays. I learned that sports culture loves effort but dislikes clocks when clocks prove effort has become harm. Coaches say, "She just needs a minute." Parents say, "He always looks like that after races." Athletes say, "I'm fine." Bodies say otherwise. A stopwatch does not replace judgment. It gives judgment a spine. The fun run emergency for my first life did not kill me in the second. Because I recognized the missing collapse time pattern during planning, I changed the event protocol months before race day. Every water station had a timing card. Every marshal carried a stopwatch. Collapse time, cooling start, ambulance call, transfer time. Cooling tubs moved closer to the high-risk stretch. Fencing changed to preserve ambulance access. On the humid race day that once ended my life, a runner collapsed near the third station. The marshal started timing immediately. Cooling began within 2 minutes. The ambulance route stayed clear. The runner survived. I did not slip in the mud dragging a tarp while people guessed a time. Nothing happened except a lot of paperwork and one furious coach who complained the race was over-medicalized. I framed that complaint. I saw Mr. Hale years later at a school sports safety conference. Of course, he had reappeared. People like him rarely vanish. They become consultants in performance culture. He approached me near a heat illness display, older, thinner, still wearing a whistle, though not the same one.
Mara-sen, he said.
Your timing protocols are everywhere now. Good. His smile tightened. That day at Marlowe was difficult for Adrian. Station 5 was difficult for Callum. It was a simulation. So, was the note you dropped? His hand moved to the whistle, then stopped. You are still unforgiving. No, I said. I am still timing. The whistle shifted against his chest. He caught it with 2 fingers before it swung too far. Memory is a dropped object you never stop hearing. My mother eventually opened a small sports health and student forum help desk beside the physio clinic. She called it Still Timing because our family had stopped pretending subtle names protected anyone. The desk helped families prepare asthma plans, sports medical forms, concussion notes, return-to-play letters, heat risk plans, and evidence for students who were tired of being called dramatic by adults without clocks. My father built a display of cheap stopwatches near the counter. Nico designed the logo, a stopwatch with tiny running shoes, and a very angry face. On the wall above the printer, my mother painted, "Do not let them turn minutes into opinions." Athletes came in embarrassed about needing plans. My mother would say, "Good athletes know their times. Safe athletes know these ones too." Now, when I train student responders, I begin with the stopwatch. Not because timing is more important than the person, because timing protects the person from everyone else's story. When did they collapse? When did confusion begin? When did cooling start? When did breathing change? When was help called? When did medication happen? If you cannot answer, somebody confident will fill the silence with a guess. Guesses sound reasonable until a body runs out of time. The simple version is true. I was reborn. I held my stopwatch. He told me to stop timing. His whistle dropped. But the simple version cannot hold the black stopwatch cord against my wrist. Dr. Clark's timing log. The first life frozen 142 that made my correct response look unsupported. Adrian admitting he liked that I seemed mechanical. My mother bringing Nico's asthma folder into the review room. Or Mr. Hale watching his whistle fall beside a note that proved he needed my minutes erased. It cannot hold the girl who once stopped the clock because a coach made timing sound less human than instinct. It cannot hold the woman who learned that recorded time is not cold. It is care refusing to become fog. If someone ever stands beside you in a station, field, court, pool, ward, clinic, race, drill, or emergency and tells you to stop timing, trust your gut, stop staring at the device, look more natural, or let the clock wait until later. Do not press stop.
Call the assessor.
Mark the lap. Keep watching the person and the seconds. Ask who benefits if the interval disappears. And if his whistle drops when the note shows he needed your timing broken, do not call it revenge. Call it safety integrity. Hold the stopwatch.
Keep the minutes.
Let the record run.